And we are live. It is Wednesday, May 14th, 2025, and a lot has been happening, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Hi, Jack. Is there a way I can see your screen?
Yeah, one sec. Well, yes, one second. Let me share my screen. And you want the chart and the stuff we're going to go over?
Yeah. Yeah, maybe just do, well, yeah, let's do the articles first, I guess.
Okay. And you
Yeah,
should.
today we're going to talk about Ethereum. That's kind of the hot topic in the crypto world, I think.
Yes, sir. Okay. We've got the Bitcoin, just regular Bitcoin chart up. Do you want me to bring up the ETH BTC or do you want to go into one of the articles?
Let's go to articles first.
Okay, which article would you like? We got Risk 5, we've got Pector Upgrade, House Republicans, and China's AI powered humanoid robots.
Yeah, a couple of those are a little bit off topic. Let's start with the House Republicans one.
I like that one. Okay, House Republicans. I'm going to move our
So,
faces out of the way.
yeah, like the whole reason Bitcoin exists is this shit right here. They're, you know, fucking Trump is like, oh, we're going to have the Department of Government Efficiency and we're going to solve the debt crisis and we're going to solve the overspending of government. Nope. He's just going to cut taxes for rich people and raise the debt ceiling another 4 trillion. That's another 4 trillion of printed money. And we currently are 36 trillion in the hole. So another 4 trillion, that's about 11, that's an 11% increase this year. So again, this is the dollar supply inflation. Usually when inflation is talked about in the news, they're talking about price inflation, which is the other side of the same coin. This is dollar supply inflation, where the supply of dollars is going up by 11%, which is going to lead to price inflation. Um, and that's why the US dollar is a shitcoin that I don't like to hold. That I like to buy my coffee at McDonald's with, but I don't eat McDonald's or drink coffee. But if I did, I would do it with dollars. But I'm not going to hold dollars as my life savings. A lot of people think saving money means just stacking dollars in your checking account, and you can do that if you want. You're not going to get. I don't recommend it because of this right here, where the debt is going up. That's all printed money. The government is spending 4 trillion more dollars than they take in taxes, and I think we only take in 4 trillion in taxes. So basically, they're spending fucking double, from what I can tell. Like it's just ridiculous. Um, and so this is what we're dealing with. This is why Satoshi Nakamoto created Bitcoin, is because the government is printing money.
That's because, as far as the government is concerned, there is no way out of this except through the money printer. That's what I believe, anyways.
Well,
I believe that eventually there may be some people that see another way out. I believe that may already be happening, but
one of the options is to um, stop Social Security, stop Medicare, stop everything that the government pays for, stop money for education, stop money for highways, stop, and then then you got old people dying in the street that isn't drivable, right? Like with people being even more uneducated than they are now. So yeah, like among the options, the yeah, or there's some way we can collect more taxes, but it's difficult to collect more taxes without damaging the economy. I really think that, I mean,
y-
honestly, a revenue tax would do pretty good, maybe, but I don't know. I'm not trying to solve the economy. All I'm saying is this is what's happening in the economy. So here's how I'm going to respond to it. Right?
yeah,
I don't have I I'm not in charge of anything, and
except your own actions.
my car as an Uber driver. That's about it. And all I know is the U.S. dollar is the supply of U.S. dollars is increasing by 11%. So with that in mind, I want my investments to increase by more than 11%. I don't want to hold a bond or a treasury bill or something getting 4 or 5% when the supply of dollars is going up by 11%. That's a bad deal. Um, my girlfriend's coming home, so hopefully I won't get interrupted too much. But
Yeah,
um,
I just wanted to say, yeah, like when as far as solving the uh, you know the debt crisis, like the way I see it, and what do I know, is that you can either inflate the debt away, make the supply of dollars so much greater that paying off your existing debt currently isn't that big of a deal, or you're right, be more productive, right? Collect more taxes. How can we collect more taxes? Well, you can't just start taking more money from. I mean, you can, but history shows that doesn't work out very well. And
right,
so you have to increase the amount of tax revenue you're bringing in without actually taxing people more, which means increasing GDP, right? Well, maybe by 2030 they can start taking some steps to increase GDP, but for now they can't. You can't just
yeah.
increase GDP, and
Th-
so
th- this is what's going to happen for now. Is we're going to print money,
mhm.
and that that might change at some point. But for the next at least 10 years, maybe the next 50 years, this is what the United States is going to do, and
Mhm.
it's what all the other countries are doing too.
Yep.
This is just the United States. Like pretty much every country with a fiat currency, which is pretty much every country, is doing this.
Yep.
Um, and so it's just a quick aside of this is why Bitcoin is doing so well, because this is what Bitcoin is created for. Is if you want to save money, you can't save it in dollars, but you can save it in Bitcoin. And that's pretty much the beginning and end of that article. What was the other one that was the non-Ethereum article?
Well, you've got AI-powered humanoid robots aiming to
Yeah, let's look at that.
transform manufacturing, which
Yep,
this is that hints as to what I had been saying about increasing GDP and how there may be a way to do so in the future.
yep, yep,
And
definitely.
and that's, how can we increase GDP and production without you know taking more money from people? Well, you increase the productivity by adding robots.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean this shit's crazy. Like there are other American companies trying to make robots, but obviously Tesla is way ahead of everybody else in the United States making robots. But the truth is, like, China is doing a lot. China is making, there's like 10 or 20 Chinese companies that are rivaling Tesla for robots. And they've got AI as well. They got DeepSeek, right? Um, and I don't know if Tesla's robot is superior to all of the Chinese robots or maybe just some of them. And I do know that most of the Chinese robots are cheaper than the Tesla robot. And all of this is still prototypes for now, but at some point it stops being a prototype and they start making, a million of them a day and pack in their factories. Probably first factory they'll pack with these robots is the factory that makes the robots, right? And then the robots will make themselves and just have all that. And I don't know what everyone's going to do for work when all the robots are full, factories are full of robots. But
Well, there will be other positions that open up.
yeah, I mean,
I mean, robots are going to go take the hazardous jobs that you know that people don't really want in countries that are developed to the point where the people there don't want to do those tasks anymore.
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
robot.
that's the reality of it.
Of course, robots working in factories is already happening in Amazon warehouses and is going to be just more and more in the future. A higher and higher percentage of the workers in factories are going to be robots. It's just the percentage of that is just going to keep going up and up and up the rest of our lives.
Hmm.
Even more of an issue to me, and I think this connects to the previous article, is uh, America is probably going to get passed up by China unless China fumbles the football, which they easily could. They're printing money too, faster than us actually. That China's already cut rates. They're already printing more.
They also needed to, from an economic standpoint, worse than we did.
Yeah, and they just had like we had a housing price crisis back in 2008. They just had a housing price crisis in I think 2022
Hmm.
because everybody in China. I mean, China has been in America. We spend. in China, they save. And most people in China save by investing in real estate. And there's so many people in China and saving so much money by investing in real estate that they were building condos in the middle of nowhere. Like there's whole cities of 50 stories tall condominium buildings, brand new building, and nobody lives there. Like there's housing for 50, 100,000, 500,000 people, and nobody even fucking lives there. And so of course that doesn't bring in any money, and people lost money. The Chinese people, a lot of them, I'm sure, lost big percentages of their life savings, trying to be responsible, trying to save money in real estate. It didn't work out for them. But there's definitely an economic battle between the United States and China, and maybe we'll keep cooperating. Who knows?
Well,
But
we've been at war economically for a while.
yeah, I would say so, especially not allowing China to sell their cars here.
No,
Like
no,
that's
I
a
mean long before that. I mean, we've been at war with China for years and years economically. It's not been a shooting war, but make no mistake, war it has been.
well, maybe it definitely started out as not war in the 70s with Nixon. Like Nixon sold out the United States manufacturing base by telling all the corporations, "Hey, let's open up factories in China," and told China, "Hey, let's open up our factories in your country, and you guys will have jobs." And they're like, "Okay, we like jobs." And so it definitely was not war at first, but now China is a good job of industrializing and educating themselves and competing. Not and like AI robots is right at the cutting edge of competition, and I don't know if they're winning or not, but they're definitely competing. Okay. Um, and I just wanted to just bring that to awareness of like, um, this is just what's going on in the world. Actually, I don't even know why. That's not. Let's get to the Ethereum articles because I think that's what I think this would be difficulty.
Okay.
Yes.
You want Pectra or you want Risk 5?
Let's just do Pectra real quick.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah, the title
so,
the title of the article is Ethereum Pectra Upgrade from 7th May 2025. I think that's the right article.
yeah, so Ethereum does a hard fork every once in a while, pretty frequently, at least once a year. They upgrade their shit with a hard fork, which means that they're totally changing things. Like the old fork is no longer compatible. That's how Ethereum Classic was created. Ethereum Classic used to be just Ethereum, but the original DAO was hacked, and like I don't know, 10 or 25% of all Ethereum tokens were in the hands of the hackers. And to fix it, they just hard forked the whole fucking chain. And I think Charles Hoskinson thought he could get his grubby mitts on Ethereum by promoting Ethereum Classic, but nobody cares about Ethereum Classic. It's totally dumb. If you invest in Ethereum Classic, you're totally dumb unless you're trying to day trade, in which case you're also totally dumb.
Yeah, day traders are stupid.
Right. I mean, it's just, I mean, there's a new Ethereum fork. Every time they do one of these upgrades, it's a hard fork. So that means that there's a whole new chain. And I don't remember. I think the big thing. So the Pectra upgrade has a lot of like small upgrades, but the biggest one to me, the one that I think is there's one thing about this upgrade that I think is causing the ETH price spike, and then this is of course me adding a narrative after the price happened, but it's the jump in um, amount of Ethereum you can put on a validator. So right now, or before the Petra upgrade, okay, use your mouse.
Mhm.
Um, point out when Ethereum hard forked from proof of work to proof of stake.
Oh man, you want me to go ways back? I don't know
I
when.
tell you where to put your go down and
What was
no, no,
the?
no,
No, no, I know. What year was it?
no, no. It's on that chart. You don't have to do any of
I
that.
know, but I have to scroll back a ways. I was just gonna make it easier for myself.
No, you didn't need to do any of that. You
What
just
was the year?
it was 20. I don't remember. I was gonna just point it. I know where it is on the chart. You just put the chart back to where you had it if you can, because it was on the chart where you had it. You didn't have to do anything.
Yeah, but okay. All right, man.
It's too zoomed out the way you have it right now. I think you had it on the
I could just look it up and tell you what the date was.
right, but I want to point it out on the chart.
Okay, so
This is
this is the maximum of the chart I can fit into the screen at one time now.
okay. It looks weird though. Can you auto fit to the screen? Yeah, hit that A in the bottom left
No,
corner.
that's not auto fit.
There it is. There it is. Okay. Now you see that middle dip
No.
and just move your mouse up to the right.
Right here?
No, farther
Right
farther
here?
to the right. Next one.
Right here?
No, the next big one.
Oh, right here.
The next big one.
This one?
Okay. At that bottom of that dip was when they announced they were ready to switch to proof of stake, and then it went up, and then that lower high from there where it went up, so up, go up.
I'm
So
just
that's
looking at the date. Wednesday the 15th. Or wait, no, sorry. Wednesday the 15th of June, 2022. Okay. What are you trying to show?
the next top, right? Yeah, yeah, up there. Yep, right there. That I think was the merge date, and you can double check that, but I think that was the merge date, the exact top. So it was a sell the news event. And when Ethereum upgraded from proof of work to proof of stake, I don't know what it improved. It improved having L2s, and in my opinion, the L2s are just straight trash because they're centralized. And there's no point to them. To me, the L2s until the L2s become decentralized, I'm not touching them. I'm not using them. I'm not investing in them.
What's an L2?
Arbitrum, Base.
No, I don't mean like what are the names of them. Like what? Explain to me what an L2 does. Why? What is an L2?
Oh, Jack, you already know this. You want me to explain to the audience? So no. All right. It's just a way to do transactions not on Ethereum but on another chain. L2 is a whole other chain that then reports its batches its transactions into bundles and ships those bundles to the Ethereum main chain so that they can do more total transactions per second in the network by doing most of the transactions on the L2s and then bundling them a bunch of transactions into one transaction on the L1.
Mhm.
Um, but those L2s are centralized, only a single sequencer, which means one person controls the entire L2, and that's really bad.
Yeah, it's and just to clarify, like when you say it's another whole blockchain that they
Yeah,
basically bolt onto the side. It runs concurrently with Ethereum, and transactions, because they're centralized, because the infrastructure is centralized, transactions can occur much faster. They don't need as long to be validated. And
yeah.
so, through a technology, I think they're called zero knowledge proofs, and then they
Some of
roll.
them are, yep. Some of them are zero knowledge proof. Some of them are optimistic rollups.
But either way, it's a function that they offload some of the actual work that needs to be done on Ethereum's much bigger, older, and slower blockchain onto a newer, faster, and streamlined blockchain, and then batching all of these different transactions up into one, unit, and then taking that one unit consisting of all those transactions and putting it onto the actual Ethereum main chain. And so this was created as a way to make it so that it's much more usable. Ethereum has become incredibly unusable sometimes, and incredibly expensive as well. And in order to mitigate some of that, which was was a factor of its growth, like it was kind of a victim of its own success in that regard. And so, in order to make it more usable, they've been trying to find novel ways to increase the throughput. The best way so far that they've decided to do is these different L2s that act as, additional workers, so to speak.
Yes, yes. All it is 100% accurate. And uh, when so, but so then why did the price go down? And I would like to argue the reason the price went down versus Bitcoin, which is the only price that matters. I don't even look at the Ethereum USD chart, although I should, and we can later. But right now, let's keep it on this chart. So, um, because when Ethereum was proof of work, an argument could be made that Ethereum was money like Bitcoin was money, that Ethereum was a store of value like Bitcoin was a store of value. An argument could be made for that, which is why, to me, Ethereum before the merge had a monetary premium just like Bitcoin does because it was proof of work. But when they switched, well, two things. One thing is didn't have as strong of a narrative as Bitcoin because Bitcoin is more ossified. And that means, I'm not sure what ossified means. I think it means like set in stone kind of. And so Bitcoin does not hard fork. In fact, Bitcoin has hard forked. That's how Litecoin came into existence. And in fact, Litecoin was hard forked. That's how Dogecoin came into existence. And Bitcoin was hard forked into Bitcoin Cash and hundreds of other, if not thousands. I don't know how many Bitcoin forks there are out there, but there's a lot. And all of those Bitcoin hard forks are not worth nearly as much as the original Bitcoin. And because Bitcoin has proven that it works and that um, you can't change it, right? You can copy it and then change the copy, which is what all those forks are. And then the market can decide what they like better. And the market has decided for 16 years straight, the market has decided that it likes Bitcoin better. And actually there was a time back in I think 2017. Let's not look at the chart, but there was a time where Ethereum's market cap almost equaled Bitcoin's market cap for a day, and then it sprung back apart where
Yeah,
Ethereum went,
when everyone was talking flippening.
right,
The
right, right.
flippening!
And I think the market decided like, hey, wait a minute, Bitcoin is more valuable than Ethereum. Now Ethereum is better than Bitcoin in almost every way. Even though Ethereum is slow, Bitcoin somehow still is slower. And as expensive as it can be to do a transaction on Ethereum, if the same amount of people were trying to use Bitcoin, it would be even more expensive because it's slower. And Ethereum, the whole point of Ethereum was for it to be programmable, and so that you could have apps on it and do stuff with it. Bitcoin is so simplistic that it which is great for keeping it decentralized and secure, um, for high amounts of money, which is exactly what it's designed for. Is all the world's money actually. It's what it's designed to be for. But Ethereum is more fun, right? Ethereum is more, hey, let's make money fun again or something. I don't know. I don't really know what the point is of making the money programmable, except that it makes decentralized finance.
Yep, DeFi becomes a possibility with smart
Yes.
contracts. There's a lot of applications for smart contracts. They're
Yes.
super useful, and that's what Ethereum did that nobody else had done.
Yes.
That's what
But
made them,
yeah.
in any way better as far as I'm concerned.
Yes. And at the same time, while they were still proof of work, they were also an argument. Even though Ethereum, even while they were proof of work, Ethereum would hard fork to upgrade. Which the argument is like, well, you're not immutable if you hard fork. That's the argument, right?
Yep, yep.
And so that's why Ethereum was never considered. Ethereum maxis, their favorite thing to say is sound money, like ultrasound money.
Ultrasound money.
And what they mean,
Ultrasound.
right? And what they mean by that is Ethereum has a lower inflation rate than Bitcoin, which is true. But inflation rate's not the only thing
Well,
that matters.
and I remember specifically the ultrasound because it was sound money before, right? And then
Bitcoin was sound
and
money.
no. Ethereum was sound money before, and then Ethereum became quote deflationary, right?
Right.
Because they were burning it and they were burning more than they were making. And
Yeah.
so the
Yeah.
total supply, the total possible supply of Ethereum was shrinking. And so
Yes.
everybody
Yep.
was running around going, this is going to get more and more valuable as it gets older because we're just going to keep burning more and more of it.
Right. Which is cool on
It
paper,
yeah,
but
it's a good feature sort of, but
yeah,
it
I don't.
didn't end up being as ultrasound as everybody thought.
And I think the reason for that is not because of the inflation rate, which is fine. It's that they keep hard forking it,
Hmm.
including Spectra upgrade is another hard fork. And when you keep hard forking it, you're changing shit. And if you're changing shit, you're not hard anymore,
Hmm.
right? To be hard, you have to stay the same. Gold, the reason
Immutable.
gold, yes, yes.
When a
Gold has,
transaction, that's what, when if you hand somebody a bag of gold and they walk away with it, like that gold is essentially gone. Like it doesn't
yeah,
exist any longer as far as you're concerned because there's nothing that you can do. I mean, beyond, some pretty extreme things, like there's not much you can do to get it back. Like if you're if you go to buy something like a car from a dealership and you get it and it's a, pile of junk, they took half the motor out of it or whatever, right? It was a bad deal and you didn't catch it. Like you can go back and demand that they give you your money back. First of all, that's a law. But second of all, like even if it wasn't, you could go to your bank and be like, these people were taking advantage of me. They had unfair business practices, and I don't believe that I should have to pay them. And they may actually be able to pull your money back for you,
yeah,
right?
yeah, definitely. Yep, yep.
But
Bank
and
trans.
which sounds great, but then like you realize that means the banks can take money from people
Yep,
like whenever they want.
yep.
Which
They,
means that like there's a literal chance, like, and it's not even a bad chance that they will at one point or another take your money.
yep, that happens all the time, especially in other countries, and it happens in the United States too, for various reasons. And that's the irreversibility of proper block.
Bitcoin, yeah,
Bitcoin.
and gold, right? Gold, you hand somebody some gold bars and they turn the corner. Like there's nothing
Yeah,
that you can do to claw that back.
and the other thing about the hardness of both gold and Bitcoin is that it doesn't change, right? Like you can set that bag of gold, you can set it down for 5,000 years. It's still going to be gold, and the bag will disintegrate, but the gold will still be there, and it'll still be worth money. And theoretically, Bitcoin, if it succeeds, which it's on the way, it's like 99% on the way to being successful.
Hmm.
Yeah, 99.9% even by now. Bitcoin is still going to be chugging along as long as people are running nodes. Bitcoin is going to keep going, and it's going to stay the same. Whereas Ethereum, they're hard forking it every year. That's not the same, and so that's not hard in the same way that gold is hard and that Bitcoin is hard. And Bitcoin does have upgrades, but they're soft forks, which means they're backwards
Everybody
compatible.
has to choose, yeah. Like you have to
Well,
choose if you want to use that.
yeah, the soft forks are optional, and they're backwards compatible. So it doesn't really change anything, right? It's basically like I can use. I think a good analogy I'm just coming up with right off the top of my head right now. Like if you took your gold and carved some computer code or words or numbers right on it, or spray painted it or something, that's like a soft fork, where the
Hmm.
soft read that information that you painted on top of your gold. That's kind of what a Bitcoin soft fork is, and it's still backwards compatible, right? It's still there. The gold is still there. You can wash the paint off if you want, right? And there's a bunch of arguments
Or
among.
if you don't, right? Like if you keep your gold just shiny and golden, you can always spray paint it later.
Yes. Yep. 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 It's compatible both ways, and there's arguments among Bitcoiners all the time, like, oh, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna run my node that has your extra information on it, like the spray paint, right? They're like,
Hmm.
no, I don't pure gold, no spray paint. I'm like, okay, fine, run your node that way. And people are like, well, I get a few extra dollars if I in fees if I charge for the spray paint. So yeah, spray paint the fuck out of my gold, knock
Yeah.
yourself out,
Right.
wash it off with turpentine whenever I want to, or
Hmm.
just leave it. It's worth more money that way anyway.
Right.
So
So
like,
we say all that to say that when you're talking about ultrasoundness,
yeah.
Ethereum really isn't as ultrasound as maybe it sort of first appears.
And the price chart plays it out. You can see it right in the price chart, right? Like they switched from proof of work to proof of stake, and they went straight fucking down because proof of stake is even more changeable than the proof of work was, and the proof of stake is even more centralized than proof of work. Any proof of stake system is going to be more centralized than proof of work because the validators have to hold the token, so
Hmm.
start centralizing the token, and they're gaining fees or interest, and so more and more, a higher and higher percent as time goes on, a higher and higher percentage of the tokens of the blockchain accumulate in the validators. And that's why, to me, the number of validators is so important, right? You want to have as many validators as you can because they're going to be accumulating stake. If you only have 100 validators, it's really easy for them to each accumulate 1% of the stake, and then it's pretty centralized, right? Like the blockchain becomes, if there's only 100 validators or less, which most blockchains are about 100 validators or less, almost all of them. And to me, that's very centralized. Someone like Hyperliquid has, I don't know, they might have been increasing their validators, but they had 4. When Hyperliquid started out, it had 4 validators, and I wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole. That's very centralized. Could get rug pulled at any time by anybody. Could be hacked. It's much more hackable if it's only 4 nodes. It's much more rug pullable if it's only 4 nodes. It's much more easier for the government to shut it down. It's only 4 nodes, right? There's nothing good about that. Like you want your node count to be high, and Bitcoin, surprise, surprise, is the highest node count. I don't know how many nodes there are, but I think it's 50,000 or 50 million or something ridiculous, plenty. And Ethereum has the second most. And that's what I wanted to get to. So the top of this chart was when they switched from proof of work to proof of stake. The bottom of this chart is the Petra upgrade. And to me, the big thing that changed with the Petra upgrade is that from that time where it's been going down, when it switched to proof of stake, each validator had to have exactly 32 ETH. And I kind of liked that idea at first, because then the validator is not accumulating, more and more and more and more Ethereum, right? I think it was meant as a way to keep Ethereum decentralized, even though they switched to proof of stake. I think that was the intention of the 32 ETH. Now, one thing about the 32 ETH is it's kind of a lot of money. It's like at $2,000, that's $64,000. That's a lot of ETH. And they're so the Ethereum maxis pride themselves on, oh, you can run a node on a Raspberry Pi or a cheap computer. Like, motherfucker, who cares? You might as well require a $10,000 computer. You're requiring $64,000 of Ethereum. If I can afford $64,000 of Ethereum, I can probably afford a nice computer. Like, that's pointless. That whole argument of having like, oh, we need to be able to do the blockchain with a shitty computer is just a dumb argument. But so for me, 32 ETH is a lot of money. But when you're talking about like professional investors or hedge funds or BlackRock or anybody else with a lot of money, or especially like, let's say the ETFs, right? Like BlackRock and Grayscale and all those guys, they want to stake their Ethereum and get that yield, but $64,000 worth of Ethereum, like, Jesus Christ, like, what are they going to spin up, 1 million fucking validators so they can stake their $64 billion worth of Ethereum, which they definitely have, right? Like, it's just it's too much, or it's a daunting task. Like, they're not going to do it. And then what happened, unintended consequences, is Lido, the where people could buy
it's a DeFi program, right?
Yeah, Lido is a DeFi program where it's a liquid staking token where you give the Lido smart contract your Ethereum, and Lido stakes it for you and gives you
a liquid token, right? A token that represents your staked Ethereum.
Right. And like, really quickly, Lido absorbed like 33% of all of Ethereum's stake. And that was very bad for Ethereum because it made it very centralized. If they went over 33%, Lido would basically be in charge of Ethereum. Like, they could run the chain. And so I don't know how it's limited only 33%. I think people that are, Ethereum maxis made a campaign to, hey, stop staking with Lido because they're too big. Right. And there's Rocket Pool and there's other liquid staking tokens, but Lido remains a big part of it. So that's another thing that hurt Ethereum's decentralization is Lido and the 32 ETH rule, with the 32 ETH being ironically too small for so then people would just, if they had $1 billion of Ethereum, they're like, well, I'm not going to make 1 million validators. I'm just going to stake the whole pile of Lido, right? And then it just centralized the stake is what happened. Like, they made the 30, I believe Vitalik Buterin made the 32 ETH limit in order to keep the validators numerous and decentralized. But unfortunately, it had the effect of centralizing it. the opposite of the intention is what the reality is what happened because of Lido. So now they're doing a workaround with Pectra. They're keeping the 32 Ethereum minimum because it used to be 32 ETH minimum, 32 ETH maximum. It didn't matter. 32 ETH exactly was the only amount of ETH you could use on a validator was 32 exactly, without doing some smart contract liquid staking tricks. But now with the Pectra upgrade, I think you can do 2,048 ETH or something as a maximum. Still 32 ETH minimum, but 2,000 ETH maximum, which works out to about, I don't know, $4 or $5 million, which is easier for like BlackRock. If they got $4 or $5 billion of Ethereum, they can do 1,000 nodes, right? It's manageable for them. And I think that is causing the jump because these big players with billions of dollars, they don't want to buy a bunch of proof of stake tokens in any proof of stake blockchain without running a validator, so they can verify that their tokens that they paid billions of dollars for are safe. They want to be able to run nodes, and if they can only run a 32 ETH node, they're like, fuck that. I'm not gonna. That's only $64,000 of my ETH. I want to secure $6 billion of ETH. Now they can secure $5 million of ETH in one node, and they know it's safe because it's validating the blockchain, validating the transactions, and I believe that is why we're seeing that big spike, is because crypto is being bought by institutions now. The individual ownership of Bitcoin has been going down, and the companies and governments and other types of institutions that own Bitcoin has been going up in the last couple of years. And I think we're seeing in the chart, that's where Ethereum is being accumulated by institutions right now. You can see it right there on the chart. That's institutional accumulation. That is not meme coiners. That's institutional accumulation right there, starting right now. And I think it's a big deal for Ethereum. And then, so that's the Pectra upgrade. Now let's go to the other article, because I think the other one's equally important. So
What is RISC-V, and why does Vitalik Buterin want it for Ethereum smart contracts?
yeah, let's scroll through that so people can pause it and read it if they want before we start talking about it. Yeah, keep going. Scroll it. They can pause it. I don't know how many pages. Hopefully, it's not too long. Well, I'll just talk while you're scrolling it. So Ethereum the software that Solidity uses is the Ethereum virtual machine, the EVM, and the EVM has some big flaws. One of the flaws, and we could probably ask Google or ChatGPT or Grok or something, but there's a maximum transactions per second that the EVM can do, which I'm pretty sure, yeah, there's the comparison between EVM and RISC-V right there, RISC-V. But the EVM is slow. I think the EVM, like the Ethereum blockchain, can do about 15 transactions per second. But even if it was a faster blockchain, I think the EVM itself can only do about 400 or 500 transactions per second, even if the chain is faster. Now there's SEI, that blockchain, which is a Tendermint blockchain from the Cosmos ecosystem, which is running the EVM, and it runs it in parallel so it can do more transactions per second. Ethereum is not doing any of that. Ethereum does one transaction at a time. Like the Ethereum virtual machine is just one transaction at a time. And so that's why it's so slow, is it just does one transaction at a time. It processes one transaction at a time, and it can only do, like I said, 400 or 500 transactions per second. And that's why Vitalik Buterin is like, okay, we got to scrap the EVM and bring in RISC-V. And RISC-V is like an open source virtual machine. I don't know who made it. It doesn't really matter. It's open source. Anybody can use it. But they're going to rip out the EVM from Ethereum and put in RISC-V, and apparently RISC-V can be 100 times faster, at least on rollups on the layer twos. But I think it can even make the base chain faster, which is what they need. They need the base chain to be faster. Like the rollups are somewhat fast, they're good enough, but they're centralized, so they're dumb. So if you want a decentralized blockchain, which is the whole point of Ethereum, was for it to be
I'm
decentralized.
still.
I'm sorry, I'm getting some static. I didn't hear you.
Sorry, my bad. I had to walk away from the computer for a second.
Oh, I was just saying, like the selling point of Ethereum is that it's the most decentralized smart contract platform blockchain. But then the L2s are centralized, so those are pointless. So for Ethereum, and then people don't use the L1 very much because it's expensive and slow. Even though it's most decentralized, it's still expensive and slow, especially when you're trying to do, complex uh, applications in DeFi and stuff. Those transactions are even slower and more expensive than like a regular like token transfer or something. So they had to do something, and I'm glad Vitalik Buterin is planning on doing this. I think this also is why we're seeing the price jump, because Ethereum's like announcement, and I think he announced this is a news article about Cointelegraph or whatever, but I think he made the announcement on Twitter around the same time as the Petra upgrade. Um, like just around like these two things kind of happened around the same time, and both of these two things kind of happened around the time that Ethereum's price started shooting up. And I think this is the other reason why the Ethereum price is shooting up, narrative wise, is that people can now say, "Oh, look, Ethereum is slow now, but in the future, in a year or two, it'll be faster, and it'll be like maybe even 100 times faster, which is pretty good. Like if Ethereum can go from 15 transactions per second to 1,500 transactions per second, that's pretty good. Um, it's not 100,000 or a million transactions per second like Solana or Sui or Aptos, but it's a start. It's pretty good, right? Um, and I think the combination of the promise of future speed increases with risk V, and the promise of and the actual reality of institutions being able to make larger larger nodes with 2000 ETH instead of just 32 ETH. I think those two reasons together, and there's probably other reasons, like there's you'd have to read the articles to get all the
Mm-hmm.
details of everything, but I don't remember all the details. But to me, when I read those two articles and other articles about this, those two things popped out the most to me.
Mm-hmm.
Was the jump in uh, maximum ETH staked on a node, and the switch from EVM to risk V. And the switch from EVM to risk V is that's going to take a while. That's going to be like how they did the merge. It took like a couple of years.
And it looks like it's a proposal being um, considered, right?
Right.
And it looks like there's a couple of different ways that they can go about implementing it.
Yeah.
Um, let's see here. Enable contracts to be written and executed in either the existing EVM model or RISC-V. Both contract types would have access to functionality such as persistent storage, holding Ether balances, and making and receiving calls. Adding this to the contract could integrate so they can call one another. So these two systems can talk to each other. And the alternative approach, described as more radical, would modify the protocol to convert existing EVM contracts. This would require rewriting current contracts to interact with an EVM interpreter, while new contracts would be written directly in RISC-V. So they would essentially build a new piece of software that communicates between the RISC architecture and the existing Ethereum virtual machine architecture.
Yes.
Anyways, it's that you can get super nerdy on this article if you want, if you're that type of technical person. But I guess the point is it is pretty revolutionary. It's not a done deal. Um,
Yeah. The
and it,
point for me is
yeah,
I've started buying Ethereum again.
okay,
Now, between the merge where Ethereum became proof of stake, uh, merging the old proof of work chain to a proof of stake chain, between that and this stuff, I sold all my ETH. And I didn't sell it early enough, but I sold it. I sold it all for Bitcoin and Solana, and I've been basically just holding Bitcoin and Solana for a while. But now I'm like, okay, like I'm looking at this and I'm like, okay, like, I mean, Ethereum is still more decentralized than Solana. Ethereum L1 is. The L2s are just trash, which is why I sold all my Ethereum. I'm like, okay, if they're going to focus on these L2s, and if these L2s are centralized, then I'm done with Ethereum. That's why I and probably other people did the same thing. But now,
I definitely sold mine a
but now
long
there's
time ago.
there's a roadmap to more decentralization with the higher Ethereum per validator and more speed with the risk V. I'm like, okay, if they're going to become more decentralized and faster, I can start investing because Ethereum still is the big dog of the smart contracts. They still have the highest market cap. They still have the highest TVL, total value locked. They still have the most stable coins. They still have the most attention of smart contract platforms. Ethereum is, they came close to losing it, right? Like Solana was getting right on their heels, and Solana is still faster, but and I think and I still have a much bigger investment. Solana. Like I'm just getting started investing in Ethereum again. In fact, I still currently own like $20 of Ethereum, and I'm buying a little bit more every week. So I'm slowly accumulating Ethereum. I'm not. If I was a better trader, I would probably uh, sell all my Bitcoin and buy Ethereum. I just don't want to do that. I just don't want to. For tax reasons, income reasons, and also I would feel I don't my Bitcoin seems way too precious to me.
Yeah.
But I think swapping some Solana for Ethereum might not be a bad move for me if I wanted to do that. But again, same reasons. I don't want to create a taxable event. I don't want to create taxes for myself. I don't want to create capital gains income for myself. I just don't want to deal with the. So I'm just acquiring both. I'm acquiring actually Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana in my Roth IRA right now, and I'm acquiring Solana through a corporation that's kind of doing a MicroStrategy plan for Solana. Forget the exact ticker. Not relevant right now. We can do it next week. But
We talked
so
about it last week, but they've changed their ticker since then.
yeah, all I'm saying is that I think it's DFDV or something. But the Ethereum is looking good right now. Like they're like okay, like they did the two things that mattered. They're addressing both the centralization of the stake on Ethereum L1 and the slowness of the L1. They're addressing both of those things, um, and that's good. Like that means Ethereum, Ethereum can definitely Ethereum even now without these upgrades. BlackRock was doing their little build fund, which was U.S. Treasuries, and they were selling them the minimum. The minimum was $5 million. And a good reason for that is because Ethereum is so slow and expensive, you can't really make less than a $5 million transaction, right? It wouldn't make sense. But now, if it's going to be faster and still as decentralized or even more decentralized than it is right now with the Petra upgrade, and if it's 100 times faster or 1,000 times faster, risk V, I think it's 100 times, um, which would push it from 15 to 1,500 transactions, which isn't like they're not breaking any speed limits, but they're being much more reasonably fast. It'd be a much more usable chain at that point. Um, that's good. And they still have, there's still whatever you have to check DeFi Llama, but there's still, $70 billion of capital sitting on top of Ethereum, stable coins and other, and all these. There's so many projects on Ethereum. Like if you look at Coin Market Cap or CoinGecko, I think you're looking at something right now.
Coin market cap.
Yeah, I mean, like half of those tokens are on Ethereum,
Yep.
right? Like put on the list. WIF is on Solana. PayPay's on Ethereum. PL, that's
Pi.
I don't even know what that is.
I
Probably
don't
on
either.
Ethereum. SPX 6900 is either Ethereum or Solana. I don't remember. It's just a stupid meme coin. But virtual, I think, started on Ethereum. And that's the thing is like I think Ethereum noticed that Solana was eating their lunch. Like projects were moving from Ethereum to Solana. Projects were launching starting out on just on Solana, skipping Ethereum altogether because Solana is so much more usable and fast, and it's Solana is almost as decentralized. Solana has 1,700 validator nodes, which I'd rather they have more, but it's not 100. It's 1,700. Like that's an order of magnitude more. Like once you get over 1,000 nodes, it's pretty hard to like coordinate. In fact, Solana proposed an upgrade. Mert from Helios, and who runs the largest. Helios runs the largest validator on Solana. They have the largest stake of Solana tokens. And Toli, who is basically the Vitalik Buterin of Solana, both Toli and Mert were like, "Hey, let's do this upgrade," where they wanted to do an ultrasound money type upgrade to Solana, because Solana has a pretty high inflation rate. It's like 7%, but the whole 7% goes to the validator. So if you're staking your Solana, unlike the U.S. dollar, if you stake your U.S. dollars in a money market fund or a treasury bill or a bond of some sort, you're only going to get 4 or 5%, but the supply inflation rate is 11% this year with the 4 trillion from 36 trillion going up to 40 trillion. But Solana, you're getting the whole 7%. If you're staking your Solana, you get the full 7% of new supply increase. It's all going to the validators. So it ends up, being a wash. Now you're getting hosed if you're holding Solana and not staking it, which is why Mert and Toli and the way Solana sits now, their inflation rate decreases every year. And I think in about 8 or 10 years, the inflation rate will be 1.5% and stay there. So validators will just receive their 1.5%. And that's equal to about the inflation rate of gold, which I think is why they picked that percentage. So it will be, the same inflation rate as gold, which is pretty good. But there's a proposal by Mert and Toli where they said, hey, let's bring the inflation rate down to like less than 0.5% right now and design it like Ethereum, where the more the chain gets used or the more stake is being staked, the higher the percentage of Solana tokens of the entire blockchain they're staked on, on validators. As that goes up, the staking rate goes down. They're going to make it kind of Ethereum style, where it varies. The staking rate, inflation rate varies a little bit and depends on certain things. And the validators voted it down. That shows to me that Solana is pretty decentralized, because Toli wanted this to happen, and Toli is the Vitalik Buterin of Solana, and Toli wanted to happen, and Mert wanted it to happen, and Mert is like the fucking
He's the voice of Solana.
he's the official Twitter trash talker for Solana, and at the same time he also runs, I think he runs Helios, or he's a big part of Helios, and I don't know what Helios is. If it's a corporation or what, but they run the largest validator on Solana. Both the largest validator and the creator of Solana both wanted this proposal to happen, but the other validators voted no. And so Solana still has 7% inflation, and the validators are gobbling up that 7%, and I am too, as I'm staking with the validators. But so to me, Solana is decentralized enough, right? Like if Solana was centralized, that shit would have passed. It's decentralized enough that what
The,
Toli
even
wanted,
the even the figureheads are being outvoted by people who don't like it. So yeah, that's
yeah,
definitely an encouraging sign
it's very
for people who are holding Solana.
right. That's why I continue to have much more money invested in Solana than Ethereum.
Well, yeah, and that's why like I pulled up this chart here. This is the SOL ETH chart,
Yep.
and it's like
Yep.
you can see the most recent price action over the last couple of days has been, falling off a cliff. But when you zoom out a little bit,
It's still
it
in the
hasn't
ring.
it hasn't even broken its trend.
Yeah. Yeah. And it might. It could
It
break the trend.
could. You never know. But
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
if you're looking at this chart versus,
I'm
ETH
sure.
BTC, for example, like which would you rather be putting your money in? That's my
Right.
thought. I look at this chart, and then I look at
Right.
ETH
I,
versus
I,
BTC, and I go, wow.
I 100% agree. And even if Ethereum is 1,500 transactions per second, even if it's 15,000 transactions per second, it's still not enough to carry the weight of the world. Like if you're gonna if every person on Earth is going to do one transaction in a day, that equates to about 100,000 transactions per second. And there's going to be people who want to do more than one transaction per day, right? There's people who are going to want to do like a transaction every second if they have some kind of bot they're running, or and I'm talking about like DeFi financial system stuff, right? If you're going to run like a stock exchange on chain,
Sure.
right? It's still not going to run on Ethereum,
Right.
even with the risk V upgrade.
Right. And that's why, I took my money out of Ethereum. I stopped understanding why I would want to hold it, you know.
Yes. The reason I have a new reason to hold it is because big money DeFi can still happen on Ethereum,
Sure.
right? Ethereum is arguably more decentralized and secure than Solana, but I would also argue not by much. And I would also argue if you consider Lido, there's a possibility that Ethereum is actually more centralized than Solana. Also, I would argue that Vitalik Buterin has more control over Ethereum than Toly has over Solana, as evidenced by this voting
Right.
of the Solana validators.
Yeah, Ethereum's almost a religion at this point.
It is,
You know,
and
and that's why,
Vitalik
and people look at, Vitalik as the
is the
messiah
god.
of
Yes,
of Ethereum. And so it's like, yeah, look, nobody's thinking Toly is a god.
right. And we don't have it pulled up, but um, Ethereum made a tweet recently. So Ethereum validators, like the Ethereum community, was voting on who should be the new president of the Ethereum Foundation. And Ethereum Foundation is like the place that makes these hard forks, right? They're the ones who propose like, hey, we should do this upgrade, the Petra upgrade. Like the Petra update was made by the Ethereum Foundation, right? With input from lots of people. But the Ethereum Foundation like packaged it up and said, hey, we endorse this. Like switch your validators to this on this day. And that's what they did, right? And so what I'm trying to say is 99% of Ethereum token holders voted for some dude to be the new head of the Ethereum Foundation. And you know what Vitalik did? He tweeted, no, I'm in charge. I am in charge of the Ethereum Foundation. I run this shit. He fucking tweeted that. No, I think you should, if you can, Jack, Google it real quick, see if you can find that tweet.
What was it? Vitalik?
Uh, yeah, Vitalik Buterin tweeting that he's the one in charge of the Ethereum Foundation. Let's just see if you can find it. I don't know if how maybe you need to search with Grok or Twitter or something.
Um, Vitalik.eth.
It is a Twitter post.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, open that up. Let's just click on that top one. That might be it.
Well, this is about Elon.
Is it?
I wish Elon
Yeah,
Musk's
that's
first tweet about Ethereum was about the tech rather than the Twitter scam bots.
yeah. That's not the right. But basically, Vitalik Buterin said, "Hey, I run the Ethereum Foundation. I'm in charge of it." And then he held his own elections and put his own people in place instead of this dude that. And to me, that shows that the governance of Ethereum is actually more centralized than the governance of Solana. So, I mean, I'm definitely not like super excited about Ethereum. I'm super excited about the short-term price action of Ethereum. I'm excited about that, and I'm getting a piece of it, right? $20 worth, but like, I'm hopeful. Like, I like Ethereum. I like their I like Ethereum's intentions of being the most decentralized smart contract platform. I don't think they're doing a good job of it right now, but I see that they're taking some steps to go back in that direction. So
Hey,
maybe it'll.
Sorry to
You know,
cut you off, but I've been meaning to mention this to you just to get your take on it. If you look at the screen I'm sharing with you, you'll see the SOL BTC chart on the daily, and I don't think you can get a more picture perfect inverted head and shoulders.
yeah, it's beautiful, isn't it?
Hmm.
Yep.
Anyways, just looks like a
If I,
smiley, looks like a chill smiley face looking at me right
oh,
now.
that's a beautiful inverse head and shoulders. No, I mean, if I was ballsy, I would sell all my Bitcoin and slam it all into Ethereum and Solana right now.
I was
But
kind of thinking about it.
I'm just not that ballsy. And again, like I don't want to have the taxes and all that shit, so I'm just not doing it. Um, I'm just gonna hold both Bitcoin and Solana, and I'm starting to accumulate Ethereum again as well. Um, but not much Ethereum. Ethereum is more just to scratch my itch of FOMO.
Yeah,
Is all I'm doing.
I'm considering converting a portion of my Bitcoin into Sol.
Yeah. What percentages of Bitcoin and Sol do you have?
I mean, I'd have to do the math, but it's something to the effect of, 95% of my crypto holdings is Bitcoin, and then like
So yeah, you're very high.
4.5% are Sol.
Yeah. I would definitely switch. I mean, for me, I'm doing like I have to do the math in my head here. 20% more than that. I have about like 60% Bitcoin
Hmm.
and about was that 30%, 35% Solana, something like that.
But
And then like, 5 or 10%, or actually like 5%, other altcoins,
hmm
including Avalanche and Sui and
yeah,
Near.
I'm thinking about picking up some Sui.
Yeah, Sui is a good one. The thing about Sui is Sui has like 140 validators, and I think they're getting more, but the architecture that Sui has does not allow for too many more validators. It's one thing I don't like about Sui. I like Avalanche because it has even more validators than Solana. In fact, I think Avalanche had an upgrade where their fees are less now. Their fees are less than a penny now. But the problem with Avalanche is that not many people use it. And if Ethereum is going away from the Ethereum virtual machine, like Avalanche's whole thing was like, oh, we're a better EVM. But now the EVM is, even Ethereum thinks the EVM is garbage. So I mean, Avalanche is looking pretty rough, honestly. But I mean, I would just sell it, except for it's down so bad I don't even care anymore.
Yeah, I can,
Just
I traded all my Avalanche a while ago. Like,
letting it be.
um,
Uh,
yeah, so you think we're about to get an alt season?
uh, Chances are good. Uh,
It's starting to look like maybe.
Last time I thought we were getting an alt season, and we got a pump, but that was about it.
Mm.
Like, go if you want, you can. Let's see. I'm 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 looking at your screen again finally here. So that's what's going to happen. I think right there. Yep, you're doing good with the on a Bitcoin chart. But let's look at the Bitcoin dominance chart.
Falling off a cliff.
Yeah, and that's because Ethereum is so big, right? And so we were just looking at both the Bitcoin Ethereum Bitcoin chart and the Solana Bitcoin chart, and both of them look like Bitcoin, like Ethereum and Solana are both bottomed out versus Bitcoin and about to go up, right? Like we've already established that. And if Ethereum is the largest altcoin and Solana is like the third largest altcoin, and if both Ethereum and Solana are going to go up versus Bitcoin, Bitcoin dominance has to go down, right?
Well, people need to move their money out of Bitcoin because they think
Well,
they're going
it's
to get a better return on a smaller horse.
right.
I mean that's the
It,
rotation you're looking for. So the question always is like, is it time to rotate?
well, that's what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
like you look at the Solana Bitcoin chart, inverse head and shoulders. It looks like it's about to go up. You look at the Ethereum Bitcoin chart, and it's been down only since the fucking merge, and it's like the largest fucking down only chart I've ever seen. And then all of a sudden now it's squirting up, right?
Hmm.
Which is the stair step. If you look at chart guys stair step strategy, you learn about that. it's a downward stair step, and all of a sudden that broke it broke bullish, right? So the charts are telling me that both Ethereum is going up versus Bitcoin and Solana is going to go up versus Bitcoin. And so given that, if Bitcoin is going to be outperformed by both Ethereum and Solana, that means the Bitcoin dominance is going to go down. It has to. There's nowhere for Bitcoin dominance to run. Like the only way Bitcoin dominance would not go down is if Tether went to zero or something. I don't know, and that's not going to happen. So it's gonna go down, and it's sort of, and the reason I'm like not super like 100% confident on it is look at that other downturn we
Yeah,
had.
right here.
Right, that's that. I thought that was alt season. I was jumping up and down. It's banana time, right? Like I was putting 100 bananas in the Discord every day. I was like, it's banana zone, woo! Like I was like, we're gonna get rich, like yay! Now, luckily, I kept most of my Bitcoin. I put some of it into Ethereum temporarily, and lost my ass, and I was pissed. That's why I don't want to do it again. But because look, it recovered and just kept on going. Like that was just a blip on the radar. And so I don't know if what we're experiencing now is a blip on the radar or if it's actually finally alt season. And I think if we zoom out, we might be able to see it better. Like go on the weekly or the monthly and zoom out a little bit.
What are you looking for?
Well, I'm looking at the entire history.
Oh, you want the whole history.
Yeah. Because I mean, because like I got all excited about that previous drop in Bitcoin dominance because it looked a lot like that big drop right there in 2020.
Yeah, but when you look at it, you know, where is that drop when
Right.
you look at it on the monthly?
Right. So that's the alt season. Like you can circle that with your mouse, Jack, for the
Yeah.
viewers. So once you circle, there's two alt seasons on here. Yep, there you go. That's one of them. That's the other one. Yep. That's both the 2017 and the 2021 alt seasons. That's what we're looking for, right? That's what we're looking to happen. We want to
Yeah,
see.
and you can see this. You can see the difference between either one
Yeah.
of these two large moves, and then
Yep.
to even see this move. Whoops, dang it.
Yep. 2017 was bigger, right?
Yeah, but I mean, like to even look at the move in comparison. This is our move so far,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Because it's not all season yet,
Right.
right? Maybe it is. Maybe it's a start. Like we'll see. It's got a lot. It's got to really make a move to make a move, right? Like it's probably going to be a diminishing returns. Like 2017 was really big, and then 2021 was still big. And we'll probably go down. Like you could draw a line at the bottom of 2022 there.
You're talking about like a trend line,
Yeah, yeah.
something like
Like
that.
yeah, well, yeah. I would imagine we'd come down to there, and you can draw a line through the tops too.
Do a little. Oh, you want to talk about a wedge?
Sure.
Oops.
I mean that might be a thing that happens.
It might be.
Right. And back, you don't have to do the top there. I would do the top from 2020 because that spot there was not there just was not an altcoin market, right? Like Bitcoin was all of crypto was basically Bitcoin at that point. But yeah, I think that's our range right now that you just drew between those two lines. That's going to be our range. Now we could break above, we could break below, right? Both those things could definitely happen. But I think most likely our alt season is going to go down from here to that line down there, through that little squiggly that you accidentally drew on there, which is fine. But I think alt season is going to go right through that little line. Oh, that's gone.
Yeah, you're thinking it's gonna come, something like this, maybe.
Yeah, I do. I do, and probably not as drawn out. The previous ones were so violent. I think another probably less violent, but still violent. Like that, the what you drew that's a nice, easy, soft landing. We're not soft landing. I think Bitcoin's going to go on blue sky breakout. Ethereum's going to go on blue sky breakout. Solana's going to go on blue sky breakout, and every pleb who's been fading crypto because they lost their ass in 2022 is going to jump in, and we're going to have a nice violent. Yep, that's what it's going to look like, just like that. And then when it bottoms out, get ready for the market crash. It'll probably stay down there like it did last time. It stayed down there for a little bit. We had that was the mania, right? That was the euphoria. That was the top of the bull market. and it's gonna be a less violent, less less 1,000x's, less 100x's than last time, but it's still gonna be there's gonna be 10. There's gonna be 10x's all over the place. Not everything is gonna 10x, right? It's just gonna be some altcoins, but it's gonna happen. I think it should. It might not. I don't know. Like
I mean, yeah, you can never be sure. Don't take anything to the bank.
right.
Furthermore, none of what we talk about is financial advice. We're just a couple of dudes talking to you about our opinions and what we're planning on doing for ourselves.
Yeah, I just would think that this would be the most likely scenario.
Yeah.
Now it is entirely possible also that because Bitcoin is such a big deal, because it's world reserve currency, and because institutions are in fact catching on to that, even though plebs are not, Larry Fink is, and other institutions that listen to Larry Fink are starting to believe like, oh wait, maybe Bitcoin is like gold. It's possible that Bitcoin dominance just keeps trickling up indefinitely. They could go right back to 99% even. It's entirely possible. But I think what we've drawn there, I think that's the most likely scenario. Um, is there a 100% chance it happens? Hell no. Is there a 75% chance it happens? Yeah, it sounds more maybe about right. I don't know. I'm just guessing. I'm just an
Yeah.
Uber driver.
Well, yeah. I mean, I guess we're using the best of our abilities for probabilistic
Yeah,
determination. We're just
yeah.
trying to figure out what we think is going to happen, and hopefully, if you guys find this useful, then you'll be able to use some of what we're talking about to help plan what you want to do too.
Yeah, and it's just something to keep an eye out for. Patterns tend to repeat, right? That's usually what happens. It doesn't mean they repeat 100% of the time. It just means they repeat, slightly more than 50% of the time. I don't know what the fucking percentage
Yeah.
is.
Well, I mean, I think that for a pennant like this, I think it's somewhere in the realm of 55, 60% of the time it goes breaks up, and the rest of the time it breaks down.
Right. And even if it does, even if I'm 100% right, and it totally follows this pattern and stays within that pennant, eventually, even if it does follow that pennant, it'll eventually break out.
Yep. At some point, it has to.
It has to. It's just the way the lines are.
Hmm.
So, however many years that takes, and like I said, it could easily break through the top. It could break through the bottom. It could do something different. I don't know.
Hmm. It's very much
So
good. But yeah, I guess that's the that's the point, is that you don't really know what's going to happen. You try to figure out what you think is likely to, and act with as much with conviction as you can.
and definitely alt season is a way to go from zero to hero.
Oh yeah.
Like if like not financial advice, if you really want to go from zero to hero, put in 100x leverage on Solana, dude, you can make $1 trillion, no problem. Like I don't know. I mean,
That may be
don't
an
do that.
exaggeration, but only for
Yes,
effect.
all of that is exaggerated. It's all nonsense. Like you're gonna have to watch people smarter than an Uber driver to figure out how to become a millionaire. But this, you know,
But that
hopefully,
doesn't mean you can't be a hero.
yeah, hopefully this seems informative to you, and it, like Jack and I keep mentioning where we get our information from, and I encourage all of our viewers, all zero of our viewers, to also check out these other sources of information. Read the Bitcoin Standard, read Broken Money by Lynn Alden, read the white paper by Satoshi Nakamoto, read read other books on investing. Read The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham. Read One Up on Wall Street by Peter Lynch. Read The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. Read I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi. Read Principles for Dealing with the Changing World Order by Ray Dalio.
That's a good one.
Start watching some other YouTube channels besides ours. Obviously, everyone is
Yeah,
watching
go to Benjamin
besides
Cowan
ours.
right now.
Yeah, go straight to Benjamin Cohen.
Into the
Go to the chart
cryptoverse.
guys. Yeah, go to Coin Bureau.
We should link that in our
Go,
description.
go
I
to,
don't know how to do that yet.
yeah, we'll figure it out. But you can figure it out too. You can just Google it.
Yeah.
Um,
He won't be
so
hard to find. He's the guy that's always right. So
yeah, a lot more right than I am. That's for
yeah,
sure.
he definitely knows his maths more.
Yeah, he's got a lot more education than me in pretty much every way. He's even better at chess than I am. There's not many people in the world who can say that. I was the sixth best or seventh. I was the seventh best chess player in my age group when I was in sixth grade
Uh,
in the
don't
United
say
States,
which state. Yeah.
in the nationals.
Oh, okay. Well, now you've even
Not
doxed yourself more, man. Don't say a
Yeah,
year.
dude. Obviously, I'm an American. You can tell my tone of
No, no, I
voice.
know, but I mean, you start giving people date ranges of, whatever, and mentioning what you were doing at that time, they'll be able to
When
figure
I
out.
was in, yeah, okay, yeah, too many details.
They can
Okay,
they can look up like who that person was at that time.
probably can. It's
Yeah,
probably a
for
picture.
sure. For sure you can. You could certainly find out who the, sixth best chess player in the country was in, 1974
Sure.
if you
All
want
right.
to. But anyways,
Anyway,
hey, we'll
I'm
we'll
hungry.
go we'll go ahead and wrap it up on that. I think that we've gone a little bit over our time. Thank you guys so much for watching the video till the end. Any last thoughts before we wrap, John?
No.
No, all the thoughts have been given. Don't forget, if you guys like the video, to please like the video. Help us get the message out. Also consider subscribing, and if you want to be notified whenever we are going live in the future, you can ping the notification bell as well. Thank you so much for running with us for this evening, and we'll see you.